Welcome in to another episode of my Dynasty Fantasy Football YouTube. Today I'm looking at Dynasty stashes. Make sure to like, comment, and most importantly, subscribe. Let's get into our first player, Carson Steele. So I actually talked about Steele in a rookie sleepers video from June. So I am ahead of the game on this one. He's been on my radar for a while. Let's take a look at his college profile again before getting into why he's a Dynasty stash. So he went to college at Ball State for 2 years, transferred to UCLA for his final season. In 2021, he had 192 carries, 891 yards, 6 touchdowns, 4.6 yards a carry, and 12 catches for 157 yards and touchdown. Then in 2022, he stepped his game up, 289 carries, 1,556 yards, 14 touchdowns, 5.4 yards a carry, and 29 catches for 166 yards and touchdowns. So he's really, really good. Then he transferred to UCLA and still maintained a pretty big role. 167 carries, 847 yards, 6 touchdowns, 5.1 yards a carry, and 17 catches for 163 yards and 2 touchdowns. Now, why do I have Carson Steele as a Dynasty stash? Well, he's jumped ahead of Deneric Prince. There are some issues with Clyde Edwards-Helaire, and we know that if you're a running back in the Chiefs offense, you will probably succeed to be fantasy relevant. Now, Steele, we have 2 preseason games. The Chiefs played yesterday, so we have 2 to look at. Steele was the only running back outside of Isaiah Pacheco to play with the starters in the Chiefs' second preseason game. Deneric Prince only played with the backups. Then last night, Steele also dominated time in preseason week 3 with the starters, playing 13 of 19 snaps with those starters. Deneric Prince did get in there for 7 snaps, and I believe they played 1 2-back set. And that's why it adds up to 20 instead of 19. But Steele was superior. He had 4 carries for 50 yards and a touchdown. Again, he was more effective. Deneric Prince was not so effective. He has not been effective this preseason. He has not been good. Didn't really deliver in this game. Now, on a more serious note, Clyde Edwards-Helaire is struggling with some PTSD and mental health issues. I don't think these are related actually to football. I think they're related to some other things. Now, of course, I'm all for players getting the help that they need, but I'm not sure that him having a large role on a football team is the best way for him to do that. It really sounds like he hasn't been able to participate in preseason games. It's not been able to participate in that many practices. I cannot see how the Chiefs can trust that they're going to have 3 running backs, with Clyde Edwards-Helaire being one of them, and that's going to work. He's just missed too much time. He hasn't been involved in the game planning. Therefore, as of now, and given what they did last night, I expect the Chiefs to keep 4 running backs, including Deneric Prince, or to place Edwards-Helaire on NFI to free a spot and then keep 3 running backs. However, to me, it's very clear. Pacheco, RB1. Carson Steele is both starting fullback and RB2. Very interesting. You never see that, but that is the case here. And then I don't know what's going on with Clyde Edwards-Helaire, and Deneric Prince for now is RB3 until Edwards-Helaire comes back. Given how bad Prince has been, I do think if Edwards-Helaire comes back, he's actually ahead of Prince. So Prince, I think, would be 4th. But Steele, to me, is going to have a role. Week 1, I think you will see snaps from Carson Steele in some capacity, which means he is a must roster player in all Dynasty leagues at this point. Now, let's get into our second player, Jordan Whittington. I've talked about him here and there to pick up a bunch of times, but we have not gotten into detail on Jordan Whittington. Either recently, didn't come up in the rookie season, but we talked about him in the Patreon Discord. So it's a great reason to get in there. You would have heard about him from me weeks ago. But anyway, let's get into his college profile. Whittington began his college career in 2019 as a running back, but never caught on at that position, ended up redshirting the year. Converted in 2020 to a wide receiver, but only played in 5 of 10 games. Didn't really do much. 21 catches, 206 yards, and 3 carries for 50 yards and a touchdown. Then in 2021, he continued at Texas in 8 games, 26 catches, 377 yards, and 3 touchdowns. In 2022, in 13 games, 50 catches, 652 yards, and a touchdown. And in 2023, in 14 games, only 42 catches, 505 yards, and a touchdown. He really didn't deliver. I mean, even compared to Jatavion Sanders, he was not really better. And he's a wide receiver. And Jadavion Sanders, tight end, he looked very not good compared to Xavier Worthy. And even worse, as you can see here, once Texas added Adonai Mitchell in 2023. So Jordan Whittington has a bad college profile. It's bad. So that's just to get that straight right now. He is not a good prospect. With that said, sometimes it doesn't matter. This is a case with Jordan Whittington where I'm just going to assume that Sean McVay probably knows something that I don't, right? Sean McVay likes him, and that's enough. That's enough to make him a dynasty stash. That's enough. It's very clear from the camp hype and that he's shining in the preseason that he's someone that might have a future on this Rams team, and that means you have to roster him in dynasty. It's really, that's all it is. But to break it down a little bit more, Jordan Whittington is not the same caliber of prospect as Puka Nacua. Puka Nacua was a better college prospect. He had more production. Now, Nacua didn't have a strong college production profile, but it was a lot better than Jordan Whittington's. Jordan Whittington is pretty bad. So far, Whittington has 11 catches for 126 yards on 17 targets in 2 preseason games. That's good. He played all 32 snaps with the Rams starters in preseason week 2. That's good. But I want to caution people against getting too carried away with Jordan Whittington. The Rams and the whole Sean McVay coaching tree never, ever plays anyone relevant in the preseason. And Puka Nacua last year played preseason week 1 and did not play preseason week 2. He sat preseason week 2 because he was a starter at that point and did not play that game, whereas Jordan Whittington did play preseason week 2. Puka Nacua, Cooper Kupp, Demarcus Robinson, and Tutu Atwell all sat preseason week 2. I think we will get to week 1 and Jordan Whittington will not have a role. The Rams play 11 personnel and they really do not rotate their wide receivers. So if Demarcus Robinson is the wide receiver 3, until there is an injury, Jordan Whittington will barely play. He is more of a true stash, like a stash that you're going to have to sit on and wait. But I'm okay waiting because we know that Sean McVay likes him. And if an opportunity arises, he could succeed. So for those reasons, Jordan Whittington is a mustache for me. Now, if you like my YouTube content, you should sign up for the Patreon. You get my rankings, access to the Discord, and the ability to ask in advance questions for the YouTube videos. I have a bunch of those for this video. Tiers begin at just $6 a month and include all of that. Now, this channel will remain focused on Dynasty Fantasy Football. All videos will be main topic Dynasty Fantasy Football. Redraft and start sit content will only be on the Patreon. I'm not going to be doing videos for that, but there are some write-ups and there will be interactive start sit content throughout the season on the Patreon. It will not be here. If you ask me a start sit question in the YouTube comments, I will point you to the Patreon, same on Twitter. Those will only take place on the Patreon for those paying customers because it takes a lot to compile those spreadsheets, and I want to focus on the people who really want the start sit advice. So that's where that's going to take place. If you want to know more about the Patreon, check out my why you should join the Patreon video on the channel. I'm going to do another version of that, specifically focused on what Start Sit is offering as we get closer. But for now, I really appreciate everyone who signed up and any new patrons who join. And yeah, just everyone who's supporting me. It really means a lot. So I appreciate everyone for that. Our last stash, a little bit more of a quick one here. Nick Mullens. With Jason McCarthy out, Mullens is now the backup to Sam Darnold. And we know that Vikings quarterbacks in this Kevin O'Connell offense will put up fantasy numbers if they play. Last year, Mullens was actually solid. 67.6% completion, 8.8 yards per attempt. Not so good on the touchdown to interception ratio, 7 to 8. And that's always the problem. He's not good at taking care of the ball. That's why he has not maintained a starting job in the NFL, even though he's efficient in terms of yards per attempt every single time he plays. Unfortunately, he doesn't add anything as a rusher, but that's okay. Beggars can't be choosers when we're doing dynasty stashes. Now, why is he a dynasty stash? Backup quarterbacks in superflex leagues, those are always the players, especially in deeper leagues, that we want to roster on the back of our superflex benches. Again, we know that Kevin O'Connell Vikings offense is a strong offense. He had success in this offense last year. Mullens threw 2 touchdowns in every game he started and finished in 2023. We know every year quarterbacks will get hurt, especially in deeper or 14-team leagues. He's a great use of an end of a bench spot. There's not much to it. I just wanted to throw this out there. You're getting to roster cut downs on August 27th. Players will be cut. You will have free roster spots. Nick Mullens may be a good use of a free roster spot in deeper Superflex Dynasty leagues. Now, we're going to hop into our Patreon questions. I have a few of them today, so let's jump into that. Who are some players you want to be desperately selling before you see it? On the contrary, any players you're really trying to buy before you see it? Well, first of all, check out my recent Dynasty Sells video. I would say Mike Evans, Najee Harris, and Zamir White all fit this mold of players I'd be desperately selling before I see it. As for buys, maybe Brock Bowers. People are a little worried about him, the foot injury, the Raiders offense, all these things. But I think once we see it for real life, there won't be any concerns with Brock Bowers. And I'd be happy to have him on my Dynasty team. Who are some absolute must-draft players, regardless of value in redraft? I mean, if we're going with a harsh reading of this question, there are none. Everything depends on value, and I don't want to overdraft anyone. But I had to pick one. I would say Jalen Waddle. I'm a wide receiver 12 in my ranks, way, way above his redraft ADP. I'd say he's the one I'd end up with in almost any draft if I followed my own ranks, which I'd like to think that I follow my own ranks in drafts that I would be doing. Next up, who is a surprising cut that will make an impact on a new team? Okay. So generally players who are cut in the NFL are bad because they're being cut. So we're not usually looking at them to make an impact on a new team. This is literally only relevant to running backs. Quarterbacks who are cut are not relevant really ever. I mean, we don't care about quarterbacks who are cut. And neither are tight ends because teams usually keep 3 or even 4 tight ends. If you're not one of the 3 or 4 best tight ends on your own team, how are you going to be relevant for fantasy football? And teams can keep at least 5 and up to 7 wide receivers. So if you're a wide receiver and get cut, I'm just done with you. You can, yeah. I mean, I'll find someone else. That's not going to be a player that I'm chasing. Unless it's a veteran salary cap cut, that's different. But if you're someone who doesn't make the 53-man roster, I don't think there's any wide receivers I'm looking at who are like cap casualties right now that would be at this time. But that's the only reason I'd care about a wide receiver who's cut. As for running backs, there's really 3 on the list that I could think of. Khalil Herbert. Herbert's probably the best of the bunch in that the Bears have a log jam at running back. DeAndre Swift signed in free agency. He's their starter. Roschon Johnson, they drafted last year. That was this regime drafted him. And he's not going to be cut. They also signed Travis Homer as a special teamer. They have Kari Blasingame as a fullback. And Velus Jones is now converting to running back. So they have 3 kind of running backs on the team. Do they need Khalil Herbert? It doesn't feel like it. But Herbert, I feel like, is too good to flat out cut. I think he's going to be traded, possibly to the Cowboys. But he would be someone on the list. Dameon Pierce, consistently being talked about as being cut. I think he's clearly the second best running back on that team. I don't get it. I think he's better than Cam Akers now, at least, or Jawar Jordan. But maybe Dameon Pierce will be cut or traded. Cowboys would be on the list once again. And then lastly, and this one is the one I think could really be cut because the Broncos would save money if they cut him. Samaje Perine. He's an older player, has no trade value. The idea of him being cut and going back to the Bengals has been floated a zillion times. They have no RB3 there. Not sure he would make an impact, but I think he could be cut and quickly signed with the Bengals. Lastly, if Jonathan Mingo is outperforming Xavier Legette in camp, the two have similar draft capital and they're similar age, why did we use second-round picks on Legette? I mean, hindsight's 2020, right? Mingo was horrific as a rookie. Players like that are usually dead. There wasn't really a better option at that point. Legette still has first-round draft capital, which means he'll hold dynasty value for a while. And even now, he's still my 202 in 1 QB. So, yeah, that's my answer to that one. Now, if you like the video, make sure to drop a like and leave a comment with your thoughts. As always, the best way to support the channel is to subscribe. And don't forget to hit that notifications bell so you can be notified about all my exciting content as it drops. Of course, if you want my best fantasy football advice, it's available on the Patreon. Dynasty, redraft, start sit, and more. And every sign up helps support my independent content. But once again, thanks for watching, and I'll see you all later.